Let's talk about Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles. Currently, the Eagles have an 8-4 record on the year, and they've dropped their last 2 games. They lost against the Dallas Cowboys last week. They were up 21-0. But you shake off last week. That is what Nick Sirianni said. You bounce back from adversity, something that we have done. Those are the actual words that came out of Nick Sirianni's mouth. So in tonight's game, you're the home team. You face the Bears, a top team record-wise in the NFC. The Chicago Bears came to Philadelphia and they bullied the Eagles on the offensive end. They ran the football down their throat constantly. But they still had a chance to win this matchup in the second half. The defense is not the biggest problem here. Vic Fangio is a very good defensive coach. But Kevin Patullo may be the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL. And it's time for Nick Sirianni to be an actual head coach. Take over play calling duties. Look at what Dan Campbell just did with the Lions a few weeks ago. He said that he wanted to get a different look. He wanted more up-tempo. So he is now calling plays with the Lions while Nick Sirianni is sitting back with his hands in his pockets and he's watching this offense do little to nothing in the first half of this game and the same in the second half. They've had some explosive moments with Kevin Patullo. But it's not because of the coaching here. It's the talent that you have. When you have Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon, a talented offensive line, and Dallas Goedert, and you can barely score points consistently in the NFL, that's a major problem. And Nick Sirianni, he called plays with the Indianapolis Colts. He's a former offensive play caller. Kevin Patullo has been with this organization since 2021 as a pass game coordinator. We have seen him work with Coach Johnson 2 years ago, who was a terrible offensive coordinator, but Nick Sirianni brought him in. After 1 year, they fired him. We saw him last year work underneath Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore was far from perfect, but he knew how to adjust. He knew how to pull offensive linemen around and build that space for Saquon in the front. So now you have those one-on-one opportunities on the outside with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And before anyone says, well, Jalen Hurts, he can't throw, he's missing a lot of passes. He is missing passes. He's skipping a lot of passes this season. But this is the same player that helped A.J. Brown have 1,500 receiving yards. In 2022, 11 receiving touchdowns. In 2023, 1,456 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. Just last season, A.J. Brown had 1,079 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. So we know that Jalen Hurts can pass the football to A.J. Brown deep down the field. And the same with Devontae Smith. But if every route is going to be a shallow cross with A.J. Brown, it's only so much that he can do. You're not running enough crossers. You're not running enough motion with the wide receivers. You're not stacking wide receivers on top of each other. With A.J. Brown playing alongside Devontae Smith, this is what Kellen Moore did last year. The passing game was not top 15 in the NFL, but they got the job done. They had a dominant rushing attack. And what was the main negative point with Kellen Moore in his career? He loved to pass the football around with Justin Herbert, and the same with Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. So he comes over to the Philadelphia Eagles. He's an outside hire. He wasn't a part of this organization, but he comes in, brand new perspective. He alters his game plan. He's pulling the guard. He's pulling the tackle to get in front of Saquon, and they're dominant downhill. Saquon had over 2,000 rushing yards last season. The offensive line played a huge part in that, and the same with Saquon. But the play calling with the run schemes were phenomenal last year with Kellen Moore. This offense was second in rushing last season. Currently, they're ranked 20th. That is ridiculous. And I know that they're playing without Lane Johnson at the moment. Their record all time without Lane Johnson is 15-25. He's one of the most impactful players in Philadelphia Eagles history. But this is what separates great coaches from good coaches and bad coaches. Can you adjust? Can you prepare your backup tackles to come in that situation and help out your team? Can you run behind your center and your guard? Can you run behind your left tackle? Can you create space for Saquon? Kevin Patullo, he just can't. He doesn't have a feel for the game. Saquon last year had 11 games with over 100 rushing yards and 1 game with over 200 rushing yards. That came against the Los Angeles Rams. It makes Jalen Hurts' life way easier. This season, he only has 1 game with over 100 rushing yards, and that came against the New York Giants, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. At that point in time, they had Shane Bowen as defensive coordinator. He's no longer there. That's how terrible he's been this year. Saquon is averaging 3.7 yards a carry. The last time his yards per carry were this low were a few years ago with the New York Giants. And we know how bad their offensive line has been over the last 5 to 10 years. And you can make the case maybe Saquon has regressed as a player. Having 2,000 rushing yards, that's a lot on your body. That's a lot of volume. That's a lot of carries. But that's why you made a trade to bring in Tank Bigsby from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm not saying that you go out there and you give Tank Bigsby 15 carries in a game. That's crazy. But you could take some of the workload off of Saquon if you feel like he has missed a step. And from the eye test here, personally, this is my opinion, he hasn't taken a step back in terms of regression. He's still bouncing around in the backfield, making defenders miss. But it is so predictable when you're running behind Cam Jurgens and Tyler Steen majority of the time. There's no creativity to this run game. You're not motioning over tight ends and wide receivers. Look at what Ben Johnson did today with Caleb Williams and the Bears. Caleb Williams had a couple of good moments, but the run game pushed him over the top. Look at the creativity, moving tight ends away from the line of scrimmage, using that motion, giving Caleb Williams a better view of the field, pulling a guard, pulling a tackle. You're not seeing that right now with the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're so late into the season. But Nick Sirianni, he knows his personnel. He gets a lot of credit for helping his team get to 2 Super Bowls and winning one last season against Kansas City. I will never take that away from him. You can't take that away from him and from Jalen Hurts. But what I can say, he's done a lot of bad things with this organization. This is 2 bad coordinators in the span of 3 years. Kellen Moore was a home run hit last season, but Coach Johnson, all-time terrible. And the same with Kevin Patullo. Kevin Patullo, he's worse than Coach Johnson. And if Nick Sirianni, he doesn't want to go out there, he doesn't want to call plays, that's fine. If they don't have a deep postseason run, there's going to be a real conversation to move on from Nick Sirianni if he can't figure out this offense. Because at the end of the day, it's up to the head coach to go out there and to manage the game and to work with his coaches. But there's a huge disconnect here. And the reason why I'm being so hard on Nick Sirianni, in that Broncos game, you're up big in that matchup, similar to the Dallas Cowboys. Saquon only had 5 carries in that game. 5 carries. If this was last season, they would have easily put that game away against the Denver Broncos. But you let them come back into the matchup. You got outcoached by Sean Payton. That goes for Nick Sirianni. And the same with Kevin Patullo. Vic Fangio, he deserves some blame here. But the defense is constantly on the field in the second half. 3 and out with your offense. You drive down the field for a couple plays, punt. Another 3 and out, another punt. While Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos, they're making adjustments with Sean Payton. They're not aggressive enough on the offensive end. They're not creative enough. But for Saquon, your best player last year, offensively, to only have 5 carries, only 6 touches against the Broncos, that's criminal. And you can make the case last week against the Dallas Cowboys, they were up 21-0. They should have won that game. It wasn't all on Kevin Patullo, but he deserves a lot of blame. You had a fumble on special teams with Xavier Gipson. I don't even know why he's on this team. It's the reason why the Jets moved on from Xavier Gipson. Nothing against him personally. I'm just talking about the player here. He has fumbled the football so much on special teams with the Jets. Aaron Glenn even knew it's time to move on from him. So you bring him over to the Philadelphia Eagles. Makes 0 sense. And Saquon had a bad fumble last week as well. 10 carries, 22 rushing yards. So for anyone that's saying that I'm just blaming the coaches for how bad things have been this year, it's not all on the coaches here. The players, they deserve some blame. But when your players can't execute your plays and you're running the same concepts constantly and it's not working out, that's on coaching right there. Plays are breaking down. And A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, they're going AWOL. That's what happened against the Green Bay Packers a few weeks ago. And they still won that game based off their defense alone. Let's take a look at the games here with the Philadelphia Eagles this season. You go back to week 1 against the Dallas Cowboys. This was a close game. They won this game 24-20. Jalen Hurts, 19-23, 152 passing yards. You may say he was very efficient. What's the problem? A.J. Brown only had 1 catch and 1 target in this game, and it came late in the fourth quarter. Your best wide receiver has his first target late in the game in the fourth quarter. It makes 0 sense. In the red zone, the play calls were terrible, but Jalen Hurts, he rushes outside, he gets the calls, his own number. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, but they got the job done. You can't complain as much if a team wins. And we have to stop that narrative. The Philadelphia Eagles, they won a lot of games 2 years ago with Coach Johnson, and they had a bad defensive coordinator. The back half of the season, it spiraled out of control. You go to the postseason, one and done against the Buccaneers because of terrible coaching. So if you win games, that's great, but how are you winning these games, and can it be sustainable moving forward? And right now, it's not sustainable. Now, the next week against Kansas City, 101 passing yards, 15 to 22 for Jalen Hurts, 0 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He had 1 rushing touchdown. Now, Saquon got some things going in the open field. Your defense balled out against Patrick. You won this game. But once again, you're underwhelmed with this performance. A.J. Brown did little to nothing, and the same with Devontae Smith. But you're still winning. Against the Los Angeles Rams, this was a weird game. In the first half, you're getting dominated. The Rams, they took away Saquon. But here comes Jalen Hurts, 226 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And in this game, it's important to bring up, it was more up-tempo. And you heard Jalen Hurts at the line of scrimmage. He's audibling plays. He's getting the football to Devontae Smith and to A.J. Brown. And whenever you have that up-tempo, the offensive coordinator, they have a hand in that. But at the same time, a lot of that is on the player, especially when he's canceling out a play. And we've seen Jalen Hurts scramble around, point up the field, let's go to A.J. Brown. So a lot of that is on Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and the same with Dallas Goedert. And you still blocked a field goal attempt to end this game, and you ran it back to the house. So great on special teams and great on the players here. I'm not giving Kevin Patullo any credit in this matchup because he was still terrible. He gets no credit from me. Against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I will give him credit in the first half. The first half, the defense and the offense, they were clicking. In the second half, Jalen Hurts had 0 passing yards. Now, Jalen Hurts, he does deserve some blame here. Wide receivers, they're open. He's just not pulling the trigger. But why don't you call a screen pass? Todd Bowles has had the number of Jalen Hurts in the past. He's sending in that bomb blitz. And Jalen Hurts was terrible against the blitz 2 years ago. Who was his offensive coordinator? Coach Johnson. He wasn't terrible against the blitz last year. They used more motion, more table routes with the running backs out of the backfield, more end cuts with A.J. Brown, more tunnel screens with Devontae Smith. He knew his personnel. But 0 passing yards in the second half, that's a crazy stat line. Even J.J. McCarthy can get you 20 passing yards in the second half, and he's terrible. But once again, you win this game. Against the Denver Broncos, I talked about this matchup. You lost 21-17. It came down to a Hail Mary play here. If A.J. Brown not interfere with the pass, but that's how Hail Marys go. You should have had this game won. The next week against the Giants, it's a short week. Your offense is still bad. Very predictable. Jalen Hurts throws a pick in this game. Jalen Hurts did not play well in this matchup, but the play calling was still terrible. Against the Minnesota Vikings, he had 3 passing touchdowns, 326 passing yards. They got A.J. Brown involved, and the same with Devontae Smith. So we know that they're capable of taking the top off the defense and having those explosive moments, but they need more up-tempo. And the one thing that I noticed in this game, everything was not condensed. They opened up this offense. It was more shotgun runs with Saquon, giving Jalen Hurts the ability to fully see the field and tighter formations. And this is known with Jalen Hurts dating back to his days at Alabama and the same in Oklahoma. Those tighter formations, Jalen Hurts is not the best. He'll have some good moments, but that's not the strong suit passing wise with Jalen Hurts. You need to have some space out there to just get the football out quick, fully spread out the field. Not every single play, that's unrealistic. But just make them comfortable. You put them under center, that's fine. But space out those wide receivers, and they did this in this matchup against the Vikings. Still has some bad moments, but overall, it was a very good game for Kevin Patullo and Jalen Hurts. I'm giving them credit for this one. Against the New York Giants next week, Jalen Hurts, 4 passing touchdowns. Terrible defense, but once again, very good job with Kevin Patullo. And you found a way to run the football. You pulled a guard and a tackle to the right. Congratulations. You can call plays with a loaded team in the NFL. against the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers have a tough defense with Michael Parsons, Lucas Van Ness, Devontae Wyatt, and company. Very good defense with Jeff Hafley, their defensive coordinator. Don't want to take anything away from him. You won this game 10-7. Jalen Hurts did have the fumble in the red zone. You come out guns blazing. You move down the field. Jalen Hurts has that turnover. The next thing that you know, let's go conservative. Shallow crosses again, slants again, drag routes, a crosser every now and then, and that's it. A.J. Brown's not running routes 15 plus yards down the field. After that fumble with Jalen Hurts, if a player's going to have a fumble or an interception and you just blow up the play calls, you can't be a coach in the National Football League. You have to trust your players, and your players have to trust you. And right now, the players, they don't trust Kevin Patullo, and Kevin Patullo doesn't trust them. You hear A.J. Brown come out, and he's always complaining about something, even dating back to last season. But I stand with him on this one. You have to get him more involved, going down the field. And the same with Devontae Smith. Now Devontae Smith has had more explosive moments this season than A.J. Brown, but get your wide receiver more involved. He's a highly paid wide receiver for a reason. And he has come out and he has said this. He cares about winning. He doesn't care about stats that much, but he wants to help the team win. It was a meeting with him and the ownership. I don't know what's going on here with A.J. Brown long term with the Philadelphia Eagles, but this is not a good sight. And it goes back to the play calling here with Kevin Patullo. But against the Packers, you won this defense based off you won this game based off your defense alone. Against the Lions, more of the same. Bad offensive outing, your defense helps you out. But in 2025, you can't go out there constantly and depend on your defense every single quarter. It's impossible. You have too many talented players on the offensive end, and the rules have changed. Now, this was the 80s or the 90s, early 2000s, sure. But your defense is going to be limited because of the calls with the referees. And offenses, they're going to find a way to break your defense. And this was the case last week against Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. You had so many miscues on special teams and on the offensive end when you got up 21-0. So you lost that game, and you deserve to lose that game. But tonight's game against the Bears, even though your defense got shredded by DeAndre Swift and Calvin Nungai, you still had a chance. Caleb Williams threw an interception on a screen pass. You could have went out there that could have capitalized on that opportunity and flipped the game over, but they weren't able to. Kevin Patullo deserves a lot of blame. The same with Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith. The offensive players too. They're out of sync. They can't execute these plays to the next level. But the reason why I'm not as hard on the players in this video, they just won a freaking Super Bowl last season with a different offensive coordinator. Jalen Hurts with Shane Steichen had a lot of good moments, a different offensive coordinator. Nick Sirianni has been the head coach. And I'm not saying fire Nick Sirianni, but he deserves a lot of blame. And if this Philadelphia Eagles team cannot turn things around over the next 3 weeks, they're going to be in a bad spot. You're now 8-4 on the season, while the Dallas Cowboys are 5-1. There is still a chance that the Cowboys could come back and win this division. Highly unlikely. But you put yourself in this situation. If we're being real here, the Philadelphia Eagles should have 2 more wins at this point in time of the year against the Giants on Thursday Night Football and against the Denver Broncos if you could close out that game. And the same against the Cowboys. 3 games as a matter of fact. Everyone on the offensive end needs to be better. But Kevin Patullo, he should pack his bags. He should be gone. And Nick Sirianni, it's time to step up, call plays, or let someone else that's a quarterback's coach or wide receivers coach, let them come in and let them call plays. But when you see someone like Dan Campbell, and even though the Lions, they're in a tough spot right now, when you see that head coach basically put his hands up and he basically says, I've seen enough. Let me call plays. Let me work with my guys. I'm not going to fire you as an offensive coordinator. You can stay on. But let me see if I can work things out here. That is what a true leader does. And Nick Sirianni has been a true leader in the past. But being this stubborn is going to get you crushed by the Philadelphia Eagles media, and it's going to get you crushed by the ownership. You look at what the general manager has done with the Philadelphia Eagles. He has assembled a very good team, talent-wise, especially with the offensive line and the wide receivers. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you feel about the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for the video, guys. God bless.